6 bells in the East Central Plains of Kansas on the Country Giant, KOFO, AM and FM 1220, 103.7, and caroming across the world on KOFO.com and the podcast in perpetuity. Thanks to engineer Sean Torres. I'm John Jacobson here with the Jacobson Report, our first anchor leg of 2.5 hours worth of coverage here in Kansas City land. We are, after all, the home and away voice of the Kansas City Royals, as well as the home and away voice of the Ottawa Braves. We are proudly Ottawa Braves, and the tribe insists on it as well, this great Ottawa tribe affiliated with our municipality and with Ottawa University, the number one country giant. And I've got to tell you guys, we are not just here in Ottawa, but we're in all of Anderson, Franklin, Miami, and Lynn counties. We are up in Douglas and Johnson. We're hitting Rock Chalk Jayhawk country up there in Lawrence. We're in Emporia. We're in the capital of Kansas, Topeka, which just, with the last election canvassing, solidified the continuation of the veto-proof Republican legislature that is checkmating Democrat Governor Laura Kelly. Also, we are penetrating those Kansas City suburbs and exurbs. I was just up in Overland Park earlier today. Welcome to the show. We've got two stupendous guests tonight. But first, I want to thank our sponsors, Jim and Cindy Jandrin. Jim, the architect there at Midwest Renewable Energy, LLC. Revenue vectors for our American farm families, helping make America energy independent and making sure our food supply is not concentrated in the hands of corporatists. We've got ethanol and renewable fuels, energy for a strong America, is lean, is clean, and is green. Midwest Renewable Energy, LLC, out of East Central Nebraska. And the great folks at Life Runners. Go to liferunners.org. Get your t-shirt today that the lovely, gracious Deborah Jacobson wears when she walks and runs for life. Life Runners, liferunners.org. Protecting life from womb to tomb, building a culture of life, helping expectant mothers and babies along the way, both pre and post-birth. We're ready to get started. Let's bring in the honor roll here. First off, we're going to go in alpha order here to make this fair. Mr. Craig Bergman, and guys, Craig Bergman is a phenomenal talent. What can I say about Craig Bergman? This guy is a Renaissance man. He is a film producer. He's a script writer. He's a musician. He's a banker. He's a veteran. He's a public influencer. He's a Bitcoin expert. He's a political campaign guru from the presidential level down to congressional and senatorial levels. Craig, what haven't you done? Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, John. As I always tell people when they ask that question seriously or in jest, I say, I don't do anything with medical. If it involves body functions, you better call somebody else. I'm not your guy. But everything else, I pretty much know something about it.
Well, and we've got an hour here later on tonight in our 2.5 hour block where we'll be visiting with folks that have been working with Bobby Kennedy. We'll be making America healthy again and talking about some real innovations with ProImmune and with Hyperbarics ProImmune 200. But yeah, Craig's with us, author, speaker, entrepreneur, consultant, talk show host, film producer, adventurer, futurist, religion, politics, and culture expert, farmer, banker, veteran. And Craig, you were down here at our beautiful Ottawa University. What'd you think? You were guest lecturer.
Oh, the kids are great. The staff is great. The university is so quaint. Love everything about small town Midwest. Whether it's Kansas or Iowa, it's all the same kind of good folks.
And they've got that free market think tank in their business college, their Angel Snyder College of Business. Wayne Angel, the great Republican veteran, member of the House of Representatives in the 70s and 80s, and then later very involved in Federal Reserve work. And this institute, this academic think tank on campus, has got a bevy of professors that learned from the greats like Dr. Walter Williams and Arthur Laffer, and I'm just so proud to be affiliated with it this year as visiting professor. And now we got to bring in my longtime radio contributor from when I was up in Omaha, USA, Jacob Hall. Jacob, you've got the best and most read political blog, and it's more than a political blog. You are truly a journalist running. You're absolutely fecund in all of the volume of articles that you're running, both news and opinion, for the Iowa Standard. It is the Iowa Standard for go-to to political news. Jacob, welcome back to join us here in KCMO.
Yeah, John, I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the invitation and always look forward to talking with you a little bit.
Well, let's get right out of the chute here, guys. All of our folks in Kansas and in Missouri that listen are asking, what in the world is going on with Iowa? Trump won by 14%, and they've got this Joni Ernst blocking cabinet picks. At least she seems to be the major dagger in the heart of Pete Hegseth. And my philosophy is give me liberty or give me death. Give me Pete Hegseth or give me death. I think they never should have flinched on Gates. I don't think she was a big supporter of Gates. But we got a Joni Ernst problem if Trump's going to get his people in. Jacob, what is going on in Iowa?
Yeah, John, this really shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. I know the Hill did a story on the 9 senators most likely to be roadblocks to President Trump's nominations. And, of course, Joni Ernst was one of those 9. Really what you have here, I think, is someone who there very well could be some hard feelings. She very well likely wanted to be considered for the Secretary of Defense job, and obviously she did not get that nomination.
And I'll say thankfully because I consider her to be not just a rhino, but a dreaded neocon warmonger. But I digress. This is your comment. No. Go for it, buddy.
No, that's very accurate, and I think she's stuck in that foreign policy of the Republican Party probably from 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Ironically,
absolutely.
it's the same foreign policy that made Ron Paul more of a laughing stock of a candidate in the Republican Party, whereas now today all of a sudden his foreign policy's widely been accepted here and almost adopted by President Trump. He's like
Goldwater the prophet. Yeah, he's like Goldwater the prophet now, and now who's really the king of Doge? Is it going to be Joni or is it going to be Ron Paul working with Vivek and with our good friend Elon?
Well, if you'd ask John Thune and Mitch McConnell, I'm sure they would prefer Joni Ernst.
That's the teaser from Jacob. Let me bring you in, Craig. We got a Joni Ernst problem in Iowa, don't we?
Well, as the man who talked Ron Paul into running for president in 2007, I want to echo everything that Jacob was saying on there. Vindication never tasted so sweet, and the Republican Party has been fighting this decalogue here back and forth on how much is national defense and how much is world building since going back to the George Bush the Elder and Pat Buchanan race of 92.
Yes.
So this is nothing new, what Joni Ernst is doing. She is that wing, what I call a Whig. Some people call it a rhino, but it goes all the way back to those generals that were not helpful in bringing a swift end to the Civil War under the very first Republican, Abraham Lincoln, who broke out of the Whig Party to basically start the Republican Party. So this is a very ancient fight. As the Bible tells us in Ecclesiastes, there is nothing new under the sun. And Jacob said it perfectly. Anyone who knows Joni Ernst, she's making us squeal.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And guys, it's very interesting, some of the analogies that we use out there. And I moderated one of the largest official candidate debates in that six-way initial primary that she ran in. It was 10 years ago already. Jacob, didn't she promise? I remember promises from Omaha Congressman Lee Terry and Jack Whitver about term limiting themselves. They never did so. You have Joni on some videotape. What did she say 10, 12 years ago?
In 2014, Joni Ernst clearly promised during a debate she would only serve 2 terms, 12 years, and she was even asked in a follow-up question, what does that mean for seniority? Because there's a lot to be said for seniority in the United States Senate, and she clearly said, even knowing how important Charles Grassley tells us seniority is in the United States Senate, she would only serve 2 terms, 12 years. I'm a product of Des Moines Public Schools, but I know she's been there. This is her 2nd term, 12 years. By the time 2026 rolls around, she should be done if she actually meant it back in 2014.
Well, Jacob, I have never seen, and I'm not joking, I have never seen someone get so savage and ratioed on Twitter, on X. I mean, I believe overnight she's turned into a literal pariah. And I'm going to ask Craig to weigh in on this. Is that the case? And Craig, were you speaking allegorically, metaphorically? Because I thought your parable of the wigs was pretty good. I thought perhaps Joni might be a wig with a wig.
Well, I was not trying to be double entendre or cute with that, and I appreciate the humor. But
the drum roll. Thanks for engineering for the drum roll too. Nice drum roll there, Shawnee boy. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah. As we were talking offline earlier in the day and previously on this topic, I don't think Joni Ernst is a liar. I don't think she will run again.
Really?
I think
well, that's
she
a
is
scoop
setting
if you think you're
herself
correct.
up. Yeah. I think she's setting herself up.
For what, a good defense contractor job?
She's telling Raytheon and McDonnell Douglas and all the neocon outfits, I'm tired of this game. I'd like a much nicer salary with stock options and benefits, and I'm willing to die on this hill to showcase my loyalty. Therefore, pick me, hire me. I hate Trump. He didn't pick me. I know there's no loyalty. Mitch and those people don't like me. They took me out of leadership. I'm ready to take my toys and go do something else. And I think that is the signal she's sending, which is why all of these radio programs and blogs and grassroots hand-wringing will amount to nothing. I think she's already gone, as the Eagles say.
Oh, you're killing me, Smalls. That means there's nothing we can do. Say it ain't so, Joe. Say it ain't so, Shoeless Joe.
Hey,
Jacob, could he be
John,
right? Could Craig be right about this? Back to Hall.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this is 2 years ago at this time, Joni Ernst was very much embroiled in being censured by Republican county central committees here in the state of Iowa over her vote in support of gun control legislation and over her vote on the Respect for Marriage Act. 17 Iowa GOP county central committees censured her over that. And during that time, she actually spoke at a Log Cabin Republicans event in Washington, D.C. that was closed to the press, and that's an LGBTQ Republican group, for those who don't know. And I talked with somebody who talked to somebody that actually attended that event, and they said they were convinced Joni Ernst was not going to seek another term back then, that she was frustrated with the blowback she was receiving from these county central committees, and that she was not going to run for another term. So it's very possible that what Craig is saying matches up with what I heard 2 years ago, and I honestly think he could be right.
And she wanted to be my latex salesman. All right, that's a Seinfeld reference for you, Sean Torres. You're too young to catch the reference. It was a rather epic line. Hey, guys, we're right at mid-program here. You are listening to the Jacobson Report on KOFO, the East Central Kansas Plains Country Giant, as well as the official home and away voice of the Kansas City Royals and the home and away voice of our Ottawa University Braves. And you are listening on AM 1220, FM 103.7, and worldwide on the web, KOFO.com. And Sean will have this podcast up within 24 hours as well, KOFO.com. We are sponsored by Jim and Cindy Jandrin, who do that great support for the Life Runners Group. Go to liferunners.org. Get your t-shirt like the lovely and gracious Mrs. Deborah Jacobson, who witnessed me last night singing A Boy Named Sue karaoke at one of our station sponsors at Blanco's. It was epic, and she loved it because, you know, she loves Shel Silverstein's Giving Tree, and little did she know that Shel Silverstein also wrote A Boy Named Sue. These guys at Life Runners are awesome. Guys are helping build a culture of life, protecting life from womb to tomb, and that includes helping out expectant mothers, babies in the womb, and babies once born. And then Jim and Cindy also so involved as founders of Midwest Renewable Energy, LLC, ethanol, renewable fuels out of East Central Nebraska. Energy for a strong America is lean, it's clean, and it's green. Talking about the cabinet bumps in the road for President Trump, largely at the hands this week, and the focal point of criticism has been Iowa Senator Joni Ernst. Craig, let me go to you. So I'm starting to get genuinely worried about all of Trump's cabinet choices. Clearly, advise and consent has been perverted by this power-hungry House of Lords. And it's amazing. These same senators that are balking at Trump appointments were appointing all of these horrific candidates like Merrick Garland and Lloyd Austin, and yet they've got angst now. And how many Trump cabinet appointees are going to get derailed? I'm worried for Tulsi Gabbard. I'm worried for Bobby Kennedy. I'm worried for Kash Patel. Craig, where does this end? When does Trump flex his muscle? And, you know, I remember his first term, he had cabinet secretaries still going through confirmation hearings, I think in April. Why doesn't he just recess appoint them all? He's got 18 months before midterms to get everything done he needs to get done. He could get them there for 200 days plus, maybe two 200-day cycles through recess appointments for the Vacancies Act. Just do it. Why am I wrong here, Craig?
Well, you have to understand who Donald Trump is. People tell you who they are. If you listen to what they say, even if it's delusional and they tell you they're a superhero, they believe it. They may jump off a tall building. So Trump is the art of the deal. And Trump remembers all the wheeling and dealing he had to do 4 years ago. He has a certain agenda he wants to get accomplished. And the last thing he wants to do is get in a fight with those 9 senators, any one of which can stall any piece of legislation in the Senate by just saying to the majority leader, I'm going to sit on this one. Boom, it's dead until they get what they want. That's a Senate rule by rule.
Well, and Craig, it's de facto. Craig, it's de facto just as bad in the House. We literally have a 220 to 215 majority, which means we have 2 votes to spare, and 3 of them are already up for special election. There's very little wiggle room, which is why I think it's a shame. I believe several House seats were stolen by the late counting. But kick it back to you before we go over to Mr. Hall.
Yeah, that's a topic I'd love to come back to on that. But just to make this point absolutely clear, Trump, if I paraphrase the great Winston Churchill, will always do the right thing, but pretty much only after he has exhausted all the bad options.
Craig Bergman, ladies and gentlemen. Jacob, back to you. I'm worried about all of our cabinet appointments. He's got some incredibly important people. To drain the swamp, he needs these people. And I'm sorry, Ron DeSantis ain't going to drain the swamp. He was a JAG officer. I want a Pete Hegseth ground combat warrior. I don't want Ron DeSantis. I don't want Joni Ernst endorsed candidate. I'm sorry, not Joni Ernst.
No, I
don't want Kim Reynolds endorsed candidate. Joni remained neutral, but Kim Reynolds, our Iowa governor, endorsed Ron DeSantis. And man, Jacob, it almost makes me worry. If we have an emergency in Iowa and Ernst or Reynolds calls President Trump, are they even going to get through the switchboard?
That's a good question. On Ernst's neutrality of the caucus, let's remember she was on Fox News saying that Nikki Haley is the total package. Joni Ernst would definitely be a Secretary of Defense who Nikki Haley would love for her administration.
Yeah.
The thing that we have to remember, too, and you make a good point, is even if you're not somebody who wants to go to war over Pete Hegseth's nomination, because I think there are some people out there who don't understand the gravity of his nomination. It's not just about his nomination.
Right.
If he falls, then all of a sudden other dominoes may fall.
Oh, blood in
and
the
those
water, because
senators
Gates
are
is
going to be
already
emboldened.
Yeah, that's a brilliant
Correct.
point. Gates has already fallen, and this is where Steve Bannon is banging his fist saying, I told you guys not to cave on Gates. He would attract all the shrapnel until January. These other guys would all get pushed through. I thought it was a tactical error by President-elect Trump. And my broader concern is I want to go into policy here for just a minute. You guys may agree or disagree with me, but having been a Cold Warrior my entire life, I'm in my 7th decade. Cold Warrior. I'm a Jack Kennedy Cold Warrior. I'm a Ronald Reagan Cold Warrior. But guys, after initially supporting the Iraq War under George W. Bush in 2001, I regret that now. I believe we've got such a deep state, warmongers, war profiteers. I think Ike Eisenhower looks like the greatest prophet in American history with the greatest, most consequential presidential speech on the military-industrial complex. Look at what we did. We fomented a coup in Ukraine a decade ago to replace a pro-Russian duly elected government. Right now, as we speak, we are fomenting a coup in Romania to keep out a sovereignist who wants to not be a globalist in Romania. Our folks are helping foment that coup, and now, by being so hell-bent on letting ISIS roll in and take out Assad in Syria, you're going to see a genocide against Christians. You're going to be seeing Christians in Syria raped, enslaved, and murdered at a genocidal level. And what has our deep state, including Senate leadership, done to not mess this up with these all these fingers in the pies here? It's been a ruinous foreign policy, a perpetual warmongering, and ending up with collateral damage that's catastrophic. Am I wrong about this, Jacob?
No, and even if you take away, let's just remove all of the consequences of this meddling for overseas. Let's look at our own country. When Joni Ernst went into the U.S. Senate, our debt was $17.8 trillion. She's been in a decade. It's now $36.2 trillion almost. Well, it's more than doubled in the last decade.
She was going to make them squeal, but I don't know who's squealing. Yeah, exactly.
Who's squealing? Because it's not D.C., it's not the military-industrial complex, that's for sure. And in the meantime, we have a Pentagon that can't pass an audit.
Oh, it's brutal. Craig Bergman, I want your thoughts here. Am I totally off the mark? I think I'm right. And I mean, this whole Ukraine policy has been so ruinous. I can argue that there were dominoes involved with our Ukraine policy that have led indirectly to the collapse of Syria and now the jeopardization of millions of lives in the Middle East. It's almost as bad as Obama destabilizing Egypt and Libya, and then the attacks against the Christians there in the Middle East. They're not safe. Craig.
Again, history repeats itself. That's the problem with history. We did the same thing with the Balfour Declaration. We did the same thing with the Ottoman Empire and the Turks and the Armenian genocide. Look, America is basically a Pisces. It's schizophrenic. And when the liberals are in charge, they make one set of policies, then conservatives come in, then isolationist types come in, the libertarians, then it goes back and cycles back to the liberals again. So, this Ukraine policy goes back. Well, if anyone watched the interview with Carlson and Putin, Putin was trying to give the American people watching this a history lesson of what was going on,
which was good. He went back
to
which was a great history lesson. He talked about Vladimir the Great, and guys, the Russians believe that Holy Mother Russia began in Kiev because that's where the Rus people initially were baptized after they won the war and honored their agreements with the Europeans. There is a history there. Our media has been so dishonest, but we've got maybe 4 minutes left. Let's turn to a little levity here. We got to lighten it up a little bit. And there were some great images this week, and I want to see what you guys thought your your greatest images were of the week. I'm going to put out 3, and you can add to it or you can opine on these with 4 minutes left. But guys, Joe Biden looking so disheveled at the White House tree lighting ceremony. He looked like Christopher Lloyd after getting electrocuted in Back to the Future. His hair was standing up vertically, horizontally, and he looked worse than Walter Matthau did in Grumpy Old Men. But to beat that, Trump coming back in, and by the way, a great performance at the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. But did you see him resume the iron grip handshake war, again defeating Macron from France with the death grip handshake? It was epic to see. Or, guys, Dr. Jill, the way she was looking at President Trump sitting next to him yesterday at the Notre Dame event, man, if every guy could find a girl that looked at him with those eyes like that, guy would have quite a catch. What say you guys? We'll start with Jacob.
I was afraid we were going to start with me. I'm definitely going to go with Joe Biden's hair. But I am glad we found him and got him out of the jungle after he was lost over there. And, I got an email from the White House pool reporter last night it was at 11:27 Washington, D.C. time. And they said Joe Biden and his team are in the Situation Room basically getting updates constantly from the neighbors of Syria. And I just thought to myself, is there anybody in this country who believes that at 11:27 p.m. Joe Biden was awake? And I think that picture of his hair would kind of confirm that suspicion.
And you notice I didn't make as a 4th entry Kamala Harris's bizarre exhortation with slightly altered body language from what one normally would see in a professional environment, a speech cadence off a little bit. We won't even go there, but Craig Bergman, I tossed out 3, your favorite image of the week.
Well, I'm not the funny guy. I have to play the straight guy. So in the few seconds that are left, I'm just going to close with saying that the only person getting those updates at 11:30 p.m. was the President of the United States, Barack Obama, in his 3rd term, and his Iranian spy chief of staff, Valerie Jarrett, and they were orchestrating the downfall of Syria, exactly what you said 3 minutes ago about Libya and Egypt and everywhere else, that born and raised Muslim, not American, pretender to our throne has been governing.
It's the ramifications are so tragic. I was sick last night, sick this morning in my heart at what's going to happen to the Syrian Christians. And you guys can badmouth and pillory Vladimir Putin all you want, but he, along with President Trump during his first term, kept ISIS at bay and preserved those Christian lives. And so many of those faith-filled people were worshiping last night and today, knowing that they are probably going to a very direct and sudden martyrdom. It is absolutely an atrocity, and it is time to clean out the deep state and to drain the swamp, because we need to make American foreign policy moral again, decent and ethical. Jacob Hall, how do they find your stuff, Jacob?
Yeah, people should visit theiowastandard.com. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Truth Social, everywhere on social media, theiowastandard.com.
And Craig gave my class advice on Bitcoin, and we're only up 70% in 60 days, which annualized would be up over 400%. Bergman, how do they find you? You're quite the guy on Facebook everybody goes to.
Yeah, I guess my personal page, Craig Bergman, you'll see I have a couple thousand followers. I don't really have a big social media presence. I also have America's Wake Up Call on Twitter.
And he's a distant relative of Ingrid Bergman, so now whenever I watch Casablanca, I'm looking for Bergman there somewhere playing the roulette wheel. Guys, we're going to have these two back. This has been absolutely awesome tonight on the Jacobson Report. As we conclude, thanks to Sean Torres, our sponsors, Midwest Renewable Energy, LLC, and Life Runners. Go to liferunners.org. And Jim and Cindy Jandron. Guys, catch this podcast. In the meantime, this is John Jacobson saying on this beautiful Sunday evening, the second Sunday of Advent, be safe, be smart, be good, be strong, love Jesus Christ. We will be worshiping the infant King soon on Christmas, the nativity of the birth of our Lord Jesus Christ. And as Tiny Tim would say, God bless us, everyone, until we meet again. Bye-bye.